Hello, it's Kevin Borras and Bob McQueen again. This is part three of our video series. We're discussing the smart mobility revolution. Bob is a smart mobility expert and is in the process of writing what we, in the old days, we'd call a book, but it's now a BOK, a body of knowledge, which will be what we now describe as evergreen content. That's the printed stuff with multimedia and interactive elements. And what we're talking about today, having previously introduced the concept of smart mobility and then talked about the technology, is we are looking at what problem does smart mobility solve? So my first question would be, why would we need a problem statement for an industry or a sector that's quite well advanced? It's not like it's been invented 6 weeks ago. This has been going on for some time. Why do we need a problem statement for the publication? And what problem does smart mobility solve?
Well, Kevin, as we're talking about problems, I'm thinking that you could be an agony aunt. Maybe we should say, "Dear Kevin."
Yeah, I'll do that.
And then, I'll spill out all the problems I've ever had with transportation, and then you can console me. But no, that's not what we're going to do.
The answer is normally listen more, isn't
it?
Listen more and compromise. We can do both of those things.
I like the Bob Newhart psychologist thing where he just said, "Stop it."
Yes. It hurts when I punch myself in the face. We just don't do that. So what problems are we solving?
Oh, the main problem right now is sticking to the subject, right?
Yes, it's very true.
So why a problem statement? In fact, that's very germane, Kevin, because you need a problem statement and it needs to be documented because you got to stick to the subject. As you get into technology, as you get into deployment, then there's a tendency to be distracted. Shiny objects, new technology, new things. So you got to keep bringing yourself back to why did we start this in the first place? Also, the very best solutions that I've ever seen all start with a clear understanding of the problem. What is it we're trying to fix?
Yeah.
And if you can't figure that out, then maybe you shouldn't bother with the solution. So the problem statement is important in terms of understanding what you're trying to do. And to me, the problems can all be boiled down to four things. And I know people will argue about this because there's a lot of key performance indicators out there, but they can all be rolled up for me anyway into safety, efficiency, enhanced user experience, and environmental impact.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the problems that we're trying to address. Safety, saving lives, saving injuries, saving damage, money. The whole efficiency thing is about reducing congestion, matching supply and demand better, which is where congestion comes from if you don't do that right. And just generally getting bigger bang for your buck, making sure your investment is generating a suitable return on investment. So efficiency, I can sometimes put environmental under that because I think environmental sustainability is efficient, but we tend to call it out separately in terms of how do you minimize the carbon footprint, how do you make the best use of non-renewable resources, and things like that. By the way, I know traffic engineers love the inductive look, but I would point out that you're burying a non-renewable resource in the ground. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes. No offense to the engineers, but yes, you're right. So in terms of, you look at any revolution in history, a revolution is normally, it overthrows a government or a monarch or some kind of presidency or whatever. So what is the smart mobility revolution overthrowing that?
Well, I don't think it's overthrowing anything. It's being disruptive. And it's being disruptive because I think we're a little fed up with the way things are. We've been very specialist in transportation, which has led to some great efficiencies, but then along comes technology, which is designed for sharing. And now all of a sudden we've got to crawl out of our stovepipes and start to cooperate and start to coordinate. And one of the problems to be addressed by smart mobility is that how do we coordinate across all modes? When we have different people in the city responsible for different things, you got traffic engineers with traffic signals, the freeway guys looking after the freeways or the motorways, you've got transit guys looking after the buses, freight guys looking after the freight. And they don't really need to talk to each other to do their job, but under smart mobility rules and a different game, if you like, we've got to work together to get the best from it. For example, if I decided to fly from Perpignan to London to come and see you, Kevin, I wouldn't buy a plane. I would buy a seat on somebody else's plane, and that's a lot about what technology is about.
True. Hitching a ride, if you like, in that sense.
Yeah.
The biggest terms.
Yeah. Sharing the cost.
Yeah.
Sharing the resource.
So I guess one of the challenges of any new technology is convincing the people who you think want to use it to use it.
Yep.
So how is that challenge being met by the smart mobility practitioners?
Well, I don't want to offend anybody, but what would happen if you gave a caveman an electric drill?
Kill himself by accident.
Well, first of all, he wouldn't be able to plug it in.
Yeah. If he had the electricity.
But assuming we get round that, then how would he use it? You have to teach him to use it. You have to make him aware of what it's supposed to do. And, I love electric drills because they are the classic tool that can be used for good or bad, right? It can be used to drill holes because that's what you want to do. Uh-huh. But it's also excellent at finding power cables buried in the wall.
True.
So the way you use the device is very important. So sometimes we always blame technology, but I think we've also got to make sure people know how to have the appropriate use of the technology. Like using a screwdriver to hammer in a nail, right?
Yeah. So the user, the person that we are imagining, the customer that wants to be mobile and be mobile in a smart way, someone who wakes up in the morning, and we're going to go back to work at some point, wakes up in the morning and rather than wonders how they're going to get to work, their phone has already told them the way to get to work. It's either told them the route to take or it's told them the modes of transport to take. So
alternatively, Kevin, they've signed up to pay a fee every month instead of a car payment, and they have access to unlimited on-demand transportation, and the automated vehicle just shows up at the right time and picks them up.
Exactly. So that's obviously some way into the future. But right. How do we get there from 2021 where we are now to, let's say, 2035, when that's going to be may well be a commonplace thing? What's that gap? Is that gap between now and then? Is that where the revolution takes place?
Well, I think automated vehicles, there's a big challenge in the middle from no automation to full automation.
Yeah.
What do you do in the middle? But there are many technologies in smart mobility where there's a nice, smooth, incremental path. Signals being made smarter, being made even smarter to being perfect. Traveler information moving to being mobility as a service, where you get a smartphone app which tells you all your choices, helps you even if you've made a spontaneous travel decision, allows you to make a single reservation across multiple modes, and then allows you to make one electronic payment. That would be significant progress, and it's probably as much of an organizational challenge as a technology challenge, because, to be honest, the technology is already there to do it.
It's just convincing the end users that they are the end users that we've got in mind.
Right. And
how do you do that?
There's also more than one group of. There's more than one group of users. There's the end user, the traveler.
Yeah.
But there's also the service delivery, people that are delivering transportation service, from planners to designers to operators and maintainers. And we need to look at those different segments, understand their learning needs, and then design appropriate, professional development information. It's the same with micromobility. Here in Perpignan, we have these wind electric scooters. I'm sure that's not how the French pronounce it. It's probably wind. But, I was going to try and use one the other day, and I thought, I don't know how to. I need a training course.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It also made me realize that the default mode of travel is the private car, because you don't have to think about it. So if we can help people to think about their choices, then maybe they'll make some better choices.
It's the same way as when we've all been working from home the last year, is that a year ago, a lot of people had never used Zoom or Teams, and now it's just a commonplace thing. The first 2 or 3 times they used it, they're like, oh, how do I do this? Where do I click? How do I know where the participants are? Where's the chat?
Right.
How do I record or whatever?
Yeah.
Now it's just a commonplace thing. I think this is my 270th Zoom call, according to my list. Other people have done thousands, but it's just, as a human being, it doesn't matter what age you are, you do adapt to new surroundings. And everyone's done that now. Maybe this is the right time for a revolution in smart mobility, just when everyone's minds are a bit more open to change and open to new technology that they wouldn't have dreamed of using a year ago.
Yeah, my major achievement in Zoom was to find the button that turned the microphone on. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and the virtual background, which I didn't have two episodes of these videos ago. I didn't have a virtual background. Now I have. It's,
there you go.
we're all moving on. Once you hit that 50 mark, technology starts to be a really sort of an ominous thing, but it isn't. So,
well, there is a question here, Kevin, and that
yes.
is, why bother with smart mobility? When we can travel anywhere virtually, we can just change the background, right?
But it's not the same, is it? Okay, you're not actually at the Honda Wolf shipyard. I'm not in the middle of a futuristic autonomous vehicle program. This is, working from home and being at home and communicating via WeTransfer and Gmail and Zoom and Teams is great, but it's not the same thing as actually being there. But the need to be mobile is never going to go away. So we need to be mobile in a smart way. As someone said to me, it's not intelligent transport; it's intelligent use of transport.
Yep, and I think that's probably a key definition right there. Not just the traveler using it, but also the operations people, matching supply and demand as well as possible. But for me, it's always been about delivering the benefits of transportation while avoiding the undesirable side effects.
Yes.
Everybody loves mobility. Although I have a concern about that, because for me, mobility means the ability to make more trips. I would like to focus on accessibility, which is how easy or how hard is it to get from one place to another. Mm-hmm. But we've tended to use mobility as a kind of banner, as a flag, if you like. So I guess we keep using it.
Well, mobility is a catch-all. Accessibility is just too long.
Yep, you're right. Too many syllables.
It just sounds better. Right. Well, that's a great, I think, introduction to the third part of this body of knowledge, this book that you're producing. What are we going to talk about on episode 4, Bob?
Good question. I think we should talk about how smart mobility fits with a smart city.
Perfect.
Right. There's a lot of discussion about smart cities. I'm not sure if anybody really knows what a smart city is. I'm not convinced there is a completely smart city anywhere on the planet. They're all good at some things, but not at others. So let's, now that I've provoked all the smart city practitioners, let's get into that in the next session.
And you've provoked all the traffic engineers as well. So we've done a good job in provoking everybody. Yep. We've stirred up the hornet's nest. So thank you, viewers and listeners, for joining us on part 3 of the Smart Mobility Revolution. Join us very shortly for part 4. From Bob and me, thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye.